Good morning. My name is Susan Dodd Meacham. I am a resident of Hunterdon County, New Jersey, and a registered intervener on FERC docket CP 15558, the proposed Penn East natural gas pipeline. An inherent conflict of interest exists with FERC being funded by the industry it regulates and industry lobbyists petitioning for appointment of FERC commissioners. These alliances disenfranchise the public. The pro-business lobbying group, the New England Council, of which Spectra Energy is a member, lobbied for the reappointment of FERC Commissioner Cheryl LaFleur to a second term, and after President Obama granted that reappointment in May of 2014, the Council then urged FERC to approve Spectra's AIM project. FERC did so, but that approval is being challenged in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit. FERC's revolving door policy between regulatory officials and industry executives undermines our democracy. On November 1st of this year, an article in DSMOG blog alleged a conflict of interest involving Spectra Energy projects being reviewed by FERC's Maggie Suter. Maggie's husband, Phil Suter, is a paid consultant for Spectra Energy, and his LinkedIn profile says he worked for FERC until mid-2012. When FERC assigned Maggie Suter to serve as environmental project manager for Spectra's Atlantic Bridge Review in February of 2015, her husband, Phil Suter, was working for Spectra on their related project, Access Northeast. Mrs. Suter never disclosed that conflict, and the final environmental reports on both projects amazingly concluded they would not significantly impact the environment. FERC unilaterally chooses certain companies to prepare draft environmental impact statements. In the Penn East Natural Gas Project, FERC appointed Tetra Tech, a member of the Marcellus Shale Coalition. That coalition freely admits its influence on this process, and their website brags they provide information to policymakers and regulators about the positive impacts of natural gas production. This hand-in-glove relationship with regulators and the industry means projects get rubber stamp approval despite the public's substantive objections. FERC is virtually autonomous. NBC Bay Area's October 2014 article disclosed, quote, contractors submitted false radiation data at Hunters Point, unquote, and reported Tetra Tech admitted providing the Navy with false soil samples and a false report that the soil was free of contaminants when it may not have been. It is unconscionable that FERC appointed Tetra Tech to conduct Penn East's environmental review 2 years after that admission of falsified critical environmental environmental information. That is the kind of collusion we are dealing with. FERC sometimes offers, quote, conditional, unquote, approval of projects before final water and other certifications are issued. That conditional approval, if offered to Penn East, could allow eminent domain proceedings to overrule the roughly 70% of affected landowners who refused them survey access. Conditional approval breaches our constitutional rights to defend our property from being taken for corporate gain. FERC uses tolling orders to delay decisions on appeals brought before it. In recent cases, FERC extended the tolling order so many times that the pipelines were already in the ground with the gas flowing before FERC issued the final opinion, and that is not acceptable. The people of this country deserve an independent investigation into this obviously rigged FERC process. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Susan Vandalsen, and I'm with Stop the Algonquin Pipeline Expansion, or SAPE, and I'm also speaking on behalf of Karina Wilkinson from Food and Water Watch in Massachusetts. Our testimony will focus on conflicts of interest that compromise the entire NEPA review process for 3 pipeline projects on the Spectra Algonquin line, AIM, Atlantic Bridge, and Access Northeast. FERC's conflict of interest policies are vague and contradictory, and the Commission has demonstrated an egregious lack of transparency regarding the contractors hired to conduct the assessments on which the project's approvals depend. In this case, Spectra Energy, a private corporation, has financial ties to the third-party contractor approved by FERC to prepare the environmental review for these projects. Furthermore, the FERC employee appointed as project manager for 2 of these projects is married to a Spectra Access Northeast consultant. The AIM pipeline, with its dangerous siting adjacent to a failing nuclear power plant, an active quarry, is nearing completion. We, the people, call for an immediate halt to construction of the AIM project, and we call on Congress to conduct a full GAO investigation of FERC. A journalist, Itai Vardi, began researching connections between Spectra and the third-party contractor, Natural Resource Group, NRG. He revealed in an article published in May 2016 that when FERC issued the final EIS for AIM in January 2015, and when NRG was chosen as the contractor for Atlantic Bridge in February of 2015, NRG was already conducting public affairs for a pipeline consortium of which Spectra was a member. Quote, when Spectra joined the PennEast Pipeline Consortium in October 2014, Spectra executives made clear their purpose was to bring frack gas from the Marcellus Shale to its Algonquin pipeline, of which the Atlantic Bridge project is a part. In other words, NRG, which works directly for PennEast, has a financial stake in the approval of Atlantic Bridge, the project it was hired by FERC to review as a third-party contractor. End quote. Senators Markey and Warren of Massachusetts wrote to FERC Chairman Norman Bay twice, demanding a new review of Atlantic Bridge and asking for clarification about the selection of NRG. Bay's first response stated that FERC's legal department had cleared NRG, but his later response included disclosure forms that show NRG had omitted the fact that it worked for PennEast. FERC's legal department appears to have not properly vetted the applicant, obviously. The approval of NRG as the contractor on all three projects should be nullified, and FERC's vetting process should be fully investigated. Further, in November 2016, Mr. Vardi published another article that exposed a serious conflict of interest on the part of FERC staff. The FERC project manager for both AIM and Atlantic Bridge, Maggie Suter, as the previous speaker mentioned, is married to Phil Suter, who was hired as a consultant to Spectra's Access Northeast project. His work with Spectra began before FERC published its final EIS for AIM in January 2015, and before Ms. Suter was assigned as project manager for Atlantic Bridge in February 2015. FERC's review of these projects is tainted by the fact that approval of the projects would financially benefit the consulting company that employs Ms. Suter's husband. FERC must rescind the Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity for the ill-fated AIM project that you've heard about, reject the Atlantic Bridge project, and require that NRG be dismissed as the third-party contractor for Atlantic Bridge and Access Northeast. Congress must call for a full GAO investigation of FERC and should refer the Suter case to the Justice Department. The Commission has not complied with its legal obligations under NEPA to conduct an independent environmental review, yet Spectra continues to move ahead with projects that put millions of people at grave risk. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Karen Feridun. I'm with Brooks Gas Truth. I'm here to talk about an EE News report. In 2014, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission collected 88 ethics documents from employees who were either seeking employment with grid operators, law firms, and utilities. They oversee or were invested in companies that are affected by the Commission's work. Greenwire received the documents in response to a Freedom of Information Act request. EE News reported on the findings of the FOIA request in 2015, noting that, quote, the documents show more than 40 instances last year when FERC employees entered into negotiations for jobs outside the agency. Those interested in hiring agency staff included Van Ness Feldman, LLP, Dominion Resources, Inc., Xcel Energy, Inc., Crowell and Mooring, General Electric, TransCanada Corp., Florida Power and Light, Steptoe and Johnson LLP, First Energy Corp., and American Electric Power Company. The documents are called notices of disqualification. Employees engaged in job hunts are among those who sign them in order to recuse themselves from participation in agency activities that will, quote, that will directly and predictably affect the financial interests, end quote, of potential future employers. One FERC employee was in negotiation with 8 different potential employers in 2014. Other employees who signed the documents to disclose stock holdings listed investments in Bank of America Corp., Exelon Corp., PPL Corp., and Berkshire Hathaway Inc. One waiver included in the documents warned an employee that any additional purchase of stock in J.P. Morgan Chase and Company or any other prohibited company would require that employee to divest. Others provided no reason for their recusals from a particular matter, and that was related to Chevron in one case and the Environmental Defense Fund in another. The close relationship of FERC and those they are supposed to be regulating is disturbing. As EE News pointed out, the Commission could inspire some confidence from the public if the ethics documents were made public without having to go through a FOIA. But it's also concerning that there is so much to disclose in the first place. The revolving door described by others testifying is only as concerning as it is because it's a door that spins between the regulator and the regulated. As one former FERC economist interviewed by EE News put it, quote, "Someone fresh out of FERC is extra valuable because of their knowledge of the politics of the organization," end quote. At that point, recusals no longer apply, and the public interest is no longer the employee's concern. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is David Pringle. I'm with Clean Water Action, and let me just start out by saying, wow. We're not even a third of the way through today, and today is just a fraction of what is out there, and I'm personally humbled and empowered by listening to the testimony and the people power here. So thank you, everyone. I'd also like to give special appreciation and a shout out to Maya Van Rossum, the Delaware River Keeper. Her passion and leadership is second to none, and also to Ted Glick. I'm not sure where Ted, oh, there's Ted in the back. Yeah. Ted has been personally laying it on the line since protesting the Vietnam War decades ago. Most recently, did a hunger strike last year in front of FERC, and I don't know how many times you've been arrested doing the right thing. So thank you, Ted. My formal testimony. My focus is in New Jersey, but Clean Water Action is a national group. Although, unlike most national groups, when times get tough and you have to lay off staff, we lay off DC staff and keep the field going. And we take particular pride in that. So while we're 14 or 15 states here today, I actually think there are a lot more. We're active in many states represented here, but many that are not, including frac central states, Texas, Colorado, Michigan, and Texas. And I'm certainly representing those states here today, and I'm sure there are many others that can say the same. So I'm not sure if every state is formally represented, but practically everyone is, and I think it's fair to say that there are people everywhere that care about this. So we are everywhere. For most of the last 30 years in New Jersey, I've been fighting a fossil project here or there, one at a time, often a couple years, nothing really going on, and working on other stuff. But in the last 10 years, that's drastically changed. We are now fighting several projects every year at the same time. New Jersey is the most densely populated state. It's the third smallest. We have 5 major battles going on right now, 3 proposed gas pipelines, oil pipeline, and oil bomb train network goes throughout New Jersey, the length and the width of the state. And that experience really hits home what you've already heard today and we'll hear more of. FERC has consistently abused its power. Its objectivity has clearly become impossible. FERC conflicts of interest are so blatant they rival President-elect Trump's. And I'd like to emphasize 3 areas, summarize them, and other people are going into more details with more examples. First, third-party contractors, as Karen just testified. FERC is hiring third-party contractors who are, doing the same work and getting representing FERC at one point, representing somebody else at the other, and that's just ridiculous. The commissioners themselves refuse to recuse themselves when any reasonable person would suggest that that's required. The fact that FERC commissioners are reviewing projects that their spouses are representing is appalling. But again, given the experience, not surprising. One commissioner has been doing it for 10 years, Mr. Mueller. The exact numbers are unclear, but you wouldn't really expect Mr. Mueller to keep a good record of this, given that he's not willing to recuse himself in the first place. The employees, you can't tell if they're a FERC employee or an industrial employee because they bounce back and forth so much, it really doesn't matter. FERC employees work for industry, industry then works for FERC. They work for industry, then they work for FERC, then they work for industry again. How fair can the regulatory process be when former FERC employees are at the center of the pipeline approval process and they're now working for industry, and then FERC employees are former industry staffers that are likely to seek employment in industry when they're done with FERC? So FERC's really a poster child. It personifies, as Mr. Trump says, the swamp that needs to be drained. Today's testimony is just the tip of the iceberg. It's barely scratching the surface, revealed by investigative reports by EE News and DSMOG blog, proving beyond a reasonable doubt that too many commissioners, FERC commissioners, their family members, FERC's employees and contractors, and those they regulate have lost, if they ever had it, any sense of independence. It's a wholly owned subsidiary of the gas industry. It's actually really more of a conglomerate. It's a revolving door where industry hires, dare I say, owns commissioners, employees, independent contractors, their family members, who combined serve as judge, jury, and executioner, and the public and the environment is the victim. So there's so much more I'd like to talk, but I'm probably already past my time, but we have some time. Two things I really want to talk about that I'm not going to, but I just want to shout out about them is, whether you're a liberal or a conservative, the left-right spectrum is too simple. Eminent domain is something that brings people to, from the left and from the right together. Most of the time I'm fighting property rights activists, but here we're working together, and the private gain they allow and the corporate greed they allow through eminent domain is something that it's their Achilles heel, and I think if nothing else, that's what we will win on. The other thing I'd like to, as personal experience testifying on the PennEast pipeline, this new secret testimony process, how you can turn meaningful public input into secret testimony on the name of meaningful public testimony is appalling and shows how ripe FERC is for abuse. Living in New Jersey, we know bullies. FERC is a bully. Chris Christie is a bully. But it eventually backfires. Chris Christie is the most unpopular New Jersey governor in modern history, and FERC is feeling the same kind of pressure. In fact, I'm kind of disappointed, although maybe not surprised, that there wasn't a FERC hunger strike going on as we walked in today, or something like that. But President-elect Trump, if you take him at his word, will try the Christie approach on steroids. And he will suffer the same fight if he does go down that road. They say rubber bullets, water cannons, and attack dogs. They say roll back. We say fight back, and we shall overcome. Thank you.